Welcome to It's Settled, the Amitros podcast. Each episode, we're going to dig into the humanity in workers' compensation and insurance claims, exploring the stories of injured people and those who support them, as well as the good work professionals are doing in the industry. And now, I invite you to join me, Sean Dean, General Counsel at Amitros and the host of It's Settled. Now, it's settled. Let's get on to the episode. All right. Delighted today to have Clarence Easterday with us. So, Clarence, you're a veteran, you're a patriot, you're an insurance and risk management guru, you're a mediator, you're a songwriter, you're involved with charitable endeavors. I think the best place to start with this dynamic background and what the folks will probably want to know is your social security number and your mother's maiden name. I think we just start with both of those things, and then we'll just work off from there.
Well, I was going to lead with my birth date, if that was.
There you go. I'll tell you, I'm just going to be open with you and the guests who are hearing it. And I told Shannon, I'm nervous about this one. This is like our 5th episode now. You were on a different frequency, and your intellectual horsepower and wit are intimidating to me. So I'm just letting you know that. So if I'm not quick on the uptake, just work with me. I'm a little slow.
So with that intro, I'm not sure exactly what you're running for, but I'm ready.
I know you're ready to go.
I'm ready to vote. I mean,
what I want to do is, because we've only talked one other time, I want to set the stage on your background, and I don't want to go all the way back, but I would love to go back to you starting with the service of your country and just giving folks an overview, not only generally what you did, but what you took away from your service and how it's affected your life up until now, and maybe even some of the attributes you brought with your service into insurance and risk management and mediating. And I don't know if there are parallels there, but I'd love to know. And first, let me say, from myself and on behalf of the viewers, thank you for your service. I would love to hear about it.
Well, thank you. It's just that never gets old. I never, ever will get tired of watching people just respect the families and the people that have donned a uniform and manned a post. So, I thank you for thanking me. I think in order to do justice to your question, I got to go back to how I ended up in the military.
Okay.
And luckily, I was born to a mom and dad who I don't think were quite expecting me. I answered to oops for the first 3 years of my life. I was a late baby. I always say that you save the best for last, but my sisters argued with me about that. But my dad was a tank gunner in World War II. And I grew up very, very poor. And, but I never saw any angst or anything but love of the country from my parents. It didn't matter where we lived. It didn't matter. And I lived in the same house. I don't want to make it sound like we moved around.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very small house on McCullough Avenue in Knoxville, Tennessee. I never saw anything from my parents that was anything but we live in the best country in the world. So when it came time to go to college, I was going to enlist, but the good Lord brought to me junior ROTC, my first year of high school. And instead of sitting in a study hall, I got to put a uniform on and go out and run through the woods, with a fake gun. I mean, if they'd given me a real one, it might have been better. It was pretty good. And, I got the first 4-year scholarship from my high school for the Army, and it set me up for probably the best life anybody could have imagined. So, the later part of your question, I think, is kind of interesting to me because I tell young military people, officers, enlisted, NCOs, it doesn't matter. Take the best parts away from your military service. The good news is people generally won't be shooting at you. And you got a lot of lessons for free that if you just use them, you'll have an amazing kickstart. So, the advice I give people is, hey, remember the parts that you should and improve on the parts that need improving.
Can you talk a little bit about your service? Kind of what you did just in general?
Sure. I was a field artillery officer. Entered the Army in 1978. I was commissioned on August 25th and was a Tennessee boy through and through. I did not want to go anywhere. If they sent me to Kentucky, I was going to have to come home on weekends. Well, in the Army's infinite wisdom, they chose Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then Camp Perry, Wiesbaden, West Germany. So I went there and became a Lance missile officer. And Lance, if you ever get bored, if you're listening to this and you get bored, it's the kind of rocket that they would have ridden in one of the movies, one of the funny movies, because it was a tactical nuclear missile. And I always kind of try to figure out what tactical nuclear missile meant, because to me, you see those little vignettes in school, and you just see everything blowing down around you. And I was always trying to figure out how I was going to get low enough, but that's a different story. So I started out as a service battery officer, ended up in a firing battery where I literally had 3 vehicles and about 12 soldiers and NCOs, and we would detach, and it was the 1st Battalion, 333rd Field Artillery, and our catchphrase was move, shoot, and communicate, because literally our wartime mission was to block Russian forces at the time, and that's not classified anymore. But we literally would detach from our unit, and we would be out on our own for however long the war lasted. So after I finished that, I went back, and Lance was a small fraternity. I ended up going back to Fort Sill and was the senior instructor at the U.S. Army Field Artillery School for Lance. I got to write a field manual. Got to go back to Germany as there were a lot of terrorist attacks.
What years, what range would this have been?
Well, that would have been probably I was in Germany from 78 to 81. And so it would have been from 81 to 84.
What was it like? I mean, you're involved with, weapons that can do a lot of damage, and it's starting to lead up to the Cold War. Do you get a sense of cynicism when you're over there going, oh my gosh, look what's going on in the world? I think every generation thinks, there's problems globally, but that must do a number to you a little bit psychologically, going, hey, could be it.
Well, it's funny. I was, I guess I was 22 at the time, and we were issuing live ammunition and cash going into a situation that I won't get a lot into, but we were being issued cash and live ammunition, the cash to pay off the locals and the ammunition to pay off the ones that wanted to pay us off. And I'm sitting there looking at these guys going, I should have been a veterinarian. But I was lucky because being in a nuclear unit, I had a higher caliber soldier, not character-wise, but intelligence-wise, because my guys got drug tested regularly. We had a personnel reliability program. Literally, I had the smarter guys because we were dealing with sophisticated weaponry. But it does dawn on you as a Tennessee boy, going, these are real bullets, and I don't know. We would go to Crete to fire our missions, and without exaggeration, which I may be prone to do on occasion, without exaggeration, we had to cease fire every live fire of a non-nuclear weapon because there was a Russian trawler in the area to pick up the missile that landed in the ocean. I mean, it was crazy.
So do you find that, those situations, and you said your motto was was it move, shoot, communicate, or was it, do I have it
Yeah,
right?
move, shoot, and communicate.
So, I mean, you're talking about a motto that's really rooted in a tactical mindset to have you extremely focused. And you're talking about these incredibly, I mean, I can't imagine, because I haven't gone through something that, I have to imagine the stress is incredible. You don't seem like you're someone who gets easily flustered. Did you find, having gone through all that experience in your service, that when you get into the civilian world, it's like, I got this? No matter however crazy the claim is, however complicated and convoluted the day is, it's not going to be remotely near what I did.
Exactly. And my motto is, if you ain't shooting at me, I don't have a lot to worry about today. Although when you say that, I had an interesting auto liability claim a couple of years ago where literally we had an accident with someone and they turned out to be on the terror. This is post 9/11. They turned out to be on the terrorist watch list.
Yeah.
And we had Homeland Security come in. They showed us this person's social media presence. There were jihad videos, and I had to mediate with this guy on a civil situation in a court environment. The mediation wasn't in court, but your military training kicks in. I had a 9mm in my back belt, and I went to the mediation, and I told the mediator, I am armed. So the military part, that may sound braggadocious, but really it's just realistic. In the military, you learn, this is my mission. Whether it's a wartime mission or whether it's a training mission, you're faced with things to do. And that's exactly what we do in business. And the thing I found in business, not, and this is generally because there are a lot of exceptions, but I think people who haven't had that military experience sometimes default to, oh, wow, this is just overwhelming. And, for me, I just always think, well, are they going to be shooting at me? If they ain't shooting at me, this is probably going to be okay.
Well, it helps you probably prioritize pretty quickly.
Yeah,
what's important.
Yeah, the Army was the best, and I worked for a great company. I've worked for great companies, but Schneider National was the first trucking company that I worked for, and they valued military service. And the companies that understand what the military person can do and utilize that, they're really, they're ahead of their peers. And one of the first questions I ask is, do you have military service? And invariably, I don't have to ask that because I could tell a month later. But I just want the jump start on it to start taking advantage of those qualities.
How did you make the transition from your military career into civilian life, specifically into insurance, risk management, the business world? Did you do something else before? I imagine you went to college somewhere.
So I went to the Harvard of the South. It's called the University of Tennessee. It's located in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I understand they're getting a football team in a couple of years, so I'm real excited about that. But the ROTC allowed me to go to college. I would have joined the Army and done whatever I would have done otherwise, but I got to go to college. I got to go in the military, and the transition from that, everything in the military is safety risk related. You don't do anything that's not safety and risk related. And when you have somebody get hurt, it's just like the real world, except we don't have workers' compensation. It's called profile. And if you have a guy on profile, you want to help him get better. You've got empathy on what he can do and not do. You have that asset that if you drive him into the ground when he's injured, it's going to be longer before he's back, in your ring of defense or your ring of offense. And if we think about that in the civilian world, I never ever am critical about what we spend for doctors. The reason being, I need that. I had that employee as an asset of my company.
I never
If they're
thought about it that way. Cause
if they're
that's your
injured,
teammate, right? Who gets
yeah, if
hurt
they're
and you want
injured,
them
I
back
want
on
them.
your team.
Yeah, if I didn't want them, I would have fired them already. So when somebody gets hurt, I want them back in the game, and I'm sometimes amazed, and I think we're getting better of embracing the modalities that maybe we didn't think about before, like acupuncture, like stem cell or PRP therapy. And it's a slow process because luckily we had a high self-insured retention, and I could have some leeway in saying no, that's not that. I've had acupuncture. That's really not a uh, a bizarre form of treatment, and you know what? It helped me a lot. So I think the military gives you, well, should give you the empathy for that teammate. And I'm a little selfish. If I've got somebody working for me, they wouldn't be there if I didn't consider them an asset. So I want them back in the game. I don't want them sitting at home watching Leave It to Beaver. Well, wait, you wouldn't know what Leave It to Beaver was.
Oh, sure I do.
You're just a young guy, watching Hannah Montana or one of those shows. I want them back in the game with me.
Do you find that you were able to translate that philosophy or that perspective over to the business leaders in that realm, going, hey, we're not looking at an adversarial situation. We're looking at, hey, this is a teammate who's hurt. We want to get him back on the team and playing.
You have any kids?
I do.
Do they immediately clean their room the first time you tell them?
No, sir.
Okay. In business, everybody's like that. You have to show them the benefit. And if I went and said, hey, this is the best idea in the world, you should follow it because I'm telling you it is, they would look at me with the chagrin that I probably would have if I were looking at them. But what I did, and return to work is a great example of that. Return to work was, well, why would I want somebody here working when they weren't, when they got injured? And you know what you do is you don't try to argue that. You do what you did in the military. You show up with your uniform looking the way it's supposed to. You show them the value of running that PT in the morning so they don't throw up during the PT test. And you lead by example, and with some constant reinforcement, just like you do with your kids. Hey, honey, I need you to clean your room.
Yeah.
Hey, honey, I need you to clean your room. Honey, clean your darn room. So, you have to take the mixture, but the good news is the military teaches you that. If you'll just, I had some, there were the officers that listened, and there were the officers that wanted to be listened to. I had a lieutenant that told every NCO what to do. Because you can. Because as a 2-week second lieutenant, you outrank that sergeant who's been in the Army for 23 years.
Yeah.
So they were coming up on an international border, and he was asleep. He fell asleep in a convoy. His driver drove across the international border. Young Lieutenant Easterday was in a similar situation and had fallen asleep because you get tired. And my driver stopped about 2 miles from the border and said, "Hey, LT, you want me to turn left here?" And I said, "Thanks, please." And I asked him later, I said, "Why'd you do that?" And he said, "Because you're not a butt. You can't be a butt in business. All this rank has its privileges, rank has its responsibilities, and rank has its responsibilities in business. People can read from you. Now, sometimes they have a biased view because they're hurt or they're injured, and sometimes they don't understand what you're trying to do. So you have to take some time to explain it. And one of the sad realities is there are people that will try to manipulate their claim, and my job is to keep people around me from becoming cynical and thinking that's everybody.
It's a very interesting and I think, frankly, different mindset to have which seems to be your philosophy of less of an adversarial situation when someone hurts themselves and presents a claim versus let's get them better and get them back. And I think over time, you were probably able to show that in dollars and cents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a stark different view of the metrics when you have a program that is cooperative, that is built on, hey, you know what? Yeah, it probably wasn't the smartest thing in the world you did, but we are where we are, so let's just deal with it. We've had situations, I believe light duty was probably, I would love to claim it as an idea, but it wasn't mine. Although if people don't know that, it was my idea. But light duty, there is such an intricate mental process that goes with injury. You have people who don't want to get paid for not doing anything.
Yeah.
So our light duty program gives them a chance to latch on to that feeling that, hey, because they are doing something. My light duty program, I refuse to have people count screws. You know why? Because I never needed anybody to count screws. I did need people to monitor the guard gate with us and make sure we have all the data when a unit comes in. They were meaningful tasks. If you give somebody a mission to count screws, you're just screwing with them. And we tried to make sure that everything was related to something that was good for the individual and good for the company. I have literally had people come into light duty situations, end up being instructors, because when they came in, they made such a contribution to the overall organization that I want them close to me.
It shows you still value them too. If you're having someone count screws, it's essentially a meaningless task, unless you need those screws inventoried, but you said you never.
I agree. We never had anybody count screws. We look at them and we estimate. So I'm not going to have somebody waste their time. Now, it was interesting the first time we handed somebody the little picker thing and asked them to pick up trash because they didn't have a bending restriction. And that was demeaning to them. And I saw what they were doing. And have you ever used one of those little picker things?
I haven't. I know what they are.
Don't, because you'll buy one from Amazon. So I went out with them and I was trying to explain to them what we were trying to do. And I ended up spending like 2 hours walking around talking to them using the picker thing, and it was, I wish I'd invented that too. But anyway, it was one of those things where if you tell somebody pick up trash, they may pick it up. But if you go out and you say, hey, the reason we're doing this is because we have an average of 7 vendors and 3 customers come on our lot every week.
Yeah.
We have new employees that this is the first, and it was devastated by the tornado in Nashville, but we've rebuilt it better than we were. But, we have a campus that you can be proud of. And when you start talking about that and you start doing that stuff, you send a different signal to people.
Yeah.
And what you don't know is how many people that person's going to talk to. I did one of the undercover boss things once, where we bring new drivers in, they stay in a hotel, they have breakfast, and they go and have physicals, and then they make it to the building, the main campus later that day. So I go have the breakfast, which I commented to the hotel about. Went to have the physical, which never knew. No, I looked good. I was Johnny Truck Driver. I had my hat. I had my boots. I looked good. But we get in the van to go to Western, and the driver's driving, and I said, hey, driver, what can you tell me about Western? And he was a Western employee, and he said, well, nothing good. And we land and we go in, and about 3 hours later, I introduced myself to the group that I'd already been talking to, and we were all buddies after that. I still had some of them come in and see me. And then I made an appointment to talk to the van driver the next morning.
Yeah.
And he came in and he goes, well, I guess I'm fired. And I said, why are you fired? I said, if anybody's going to get fired, it should be me. He goes, why? I said, well, I've obviously done a poor job of onboarding you, and you don't feel good about us. So I want you to spend the next couple hours with me, and let me show you what we really do. And
so you made him count screws for the next 3 hours.
Next 5 days.
5 days. Yeah.
Them screws got counted 6 times. No, I just, he turned out to stay for 3 more years and was a good guy. We had not done a good job of onboarding him. And I think that was part of the military, because in the military, if you transition failure to somebody else, you would fail many more times. If you own that failure and you try to find what you can, it's the same way when somebody gets hurt. I want someone to be handled with respect. I want someone's claim to, not someone to be handled, someone's claim to be handled with respect. And I keep a close eye on the adjusters that we have. And I guess the one thing I would urge people to do, if they don't feel like they're being treated like that, there is somebody that wants to hear that. Because I do fundamentally believe, because I talk to way too many people, too many peers in the industry, nobody wants to pay money to have their teammates not treated well. I mean, it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
One of my adjusters had just had a birthday, and they love chicory coffee. And I sent her chicory coffee for her birthday. And she said, "You're just so sweet to me." I said, "I'm not sweet to you. I want you in the game. I want you to be happy." And she knows that I want her to do the same with my folks. So whether it's in settling a claim, now some people have unrealistic expectations, and that's okay. You just
I want to talk about that too, because you're a civil mediator as well.
Correct.
And I've had experience in mediations on one side or the other, and it's such a difficult dynamic. I guess, taking off your risk management hat on and going in there as a mediator, what is your general philosophy on, hey, we got 2 parties that aren't even close. They're sitting down with me. How do you view your role, and sort of what's your take on taking those parties as they are at that moment?
Oh, I could get all mushy with that question. Probably one of the most honored positions I had was being entrusted with people, their lives. Ranking right up there is being entrusted with a traumatic situation, because people don't generally mediate good stuff. I've done some pro bono work, and I will give a shout out to Hamilton County, Tennessee, because with the vid or the Rona or whatever we want to call it, we've had people get into issues with their medical bills and their their ability to pay. So Hamilton County has established this program where they get mediators like me it's called Rule 31 listed, which means nothing more than the Supreme Court has looked at my credentials and they trust me to do stuff. And they have put us in contact with these folks. So I dealt with a $969 hospital bill a couple weeks ago. I went at it with the same vigor that I did a $142,000 claim that was actually a Western auto liability claim. And you may think that sounds trite, but to me, I guarantee you that $969 mattered to the lady. And again, typical me, I give you a long answer to a brief question. My role is to try to get people to agree. Doesn't really matter to me what they agree on, but I'm trying to get them to agree. The bad news is sometimes when you're dealing with a unsophisticated person and a sophisticated entity, you have to work real hard to stay neutral, because I want the best deal for both parties. When you're dealing with a scenario like that, where you've got someone who may not be as sophisticated, maybe I will offer suggestions that the other side were we dealing in the same level of competence, I wouldn't do. But, I've watched federal judges deal with pro se claimants, and they help them. You know what? So, I guess I can be a federal judge one day because I help people as much as I can. But still, as a neutral, you're entrusted to try to get resolution. So I love it. Since the Rona hit in March of 2020, I have done 149 mediations.
Oh my gosh.
And, most of them, now, not that I was a participant or I did the mediation, but in the process of that, what I saw was a high percentage of people that walked away with closure. Now, I've been hugged at mediations before. And part of what I tell people is, I did a conference a couple of months ago in Las Vegas, of all places. And my message to the group was, everybody's not meant to negotiate. If you don't have any empathy, put that person on counting screws or something, because they don't need to be talking to people. And when you're dealing with somebody who is injured, they don't need to hear about your injury. Although I have given advice to people, I've had 2 rotator surgeries. I've given advice to people, hey, think about doing this, because I did that and it helped me immensely. But it's not from a position of critical opinions. It's of, hey, I feel that stuff hurts and I feel bad for you. So do this, try that.
How did you make your way initially into trucking, logistics, and risk management in that particular field? What kept you going to, a big box insurance company? Or
Well, the judge says you need a job. You can't get. That's a different story. I wanted something that was similar to the military, and trucking was similar to the military. And Schneider loved junior military officers. When I got out, I went to a conference that we were in Germany. One of my buddies was going to this conference that was soliciting junior military officers, and I went with him to help him not get out of the Army. We both got out of the Army. He went to work for a publisher in Oregon. I went to work for Schneider National, and I took a tremendous pay cut for a few years, and I was worried about missing the Army. And the only difference was I was never tired. Well, I was tired a lot. I was never cold and hungry. Nobody ever shot at me, and my uniform was whatever I chose to make it that day. So, it's one of those things where the insurance is fine. And I'm not going to say anything bad about them. I'm not going to say anything bad about insurance people, but they deal with numbers. I don't want to deal with numbers. I want to deal with people. I have an insurance company that takes part of my work comp risk, but I also have a person assigned to be that liaison to make sure that Uncle Clarence's thought process about people remains constant. Now, it was lucky because the person I chose is an empathetic, understanding, somewhat jaundiced in her view of things sometimes, but a very balanced individual. I'm not sure that if you're in insurance and you're dealing with reserves and you're dealing with statistics and you don't have that same tie to the people, you get the same thing. So, I'm exactly where the big guy wanted to put me.
Have you done any mediations where you were the mediator between the insurance side and an injured individual? And how do you address that dynamic?
Most of the mediations I've done some for municipalities, I was asked to do one for the city of Knoxville, but most of I am generally a participant.
Okay.
But don't read too much into that, because as a mediator and as a participant, there are some mediators who are really good at what they do. There are a bunch who don't really understand the process. So part of what I try to do is, as empathetically as I can in one of those situations, I'll become kind of the co-mediator and direct. I always make sure everybody knows, hey, I'm a Rule 31 listed mediator in Tennessee. That's like telling your kids, hey, the nanny cam's going to be on.
Yeah.
So be careful about the chocolate. So you get a little extra, I think, awareness that way.
Attention. Yeah.
But the other thing, it goes right back to the military. You can't ignore the objective because you didn't get enough bullets. If you don't get a mediator who understands and is understanding what you're trying to do, you have to manage that situation. And I was thinking about this a lot yesterday, and if you could look at any of the lessons from the military that took me a few years to understand, was just how much they enable you. If you just kind of just lean back a little bit and think, hey, how do I do this? How would I do this if Colonel Yarger were watching me? How would I do this if I'm in a situation and people matter? How's the best way to do it? And it may sound hokey, but I often drift back to those military days. I still have the battalion training management system manual that I used in the Army to train people on tasks. And why do I have that from, as people would say 100 years ago? Because it was the best training system I ever saw.
The most effective people I've seen in the insurance and risk management and legal world are able to meld the technical, which is kind of what you're talking about, with the people stuff. And most of the time it's weighed heavily on the technical side.
Well, I think you're very right. I think you're correct.
And I'm thinking is more experienced folks phase out of insurance. There's talk of, a lot of technology and algorithms are going to replace people, but you're going to have people getting hurt. And, how do you get, this is just a little stream of consciousness, but thinking, how do you get younger people involved? Because I see insurance as in the service of other people and helping other people. And not to sound hokey about it on my end, but that's why I love doing it. How do you get younger people who might think it's all about numbers and cents excited about insurance in that way and helping people?
For all the accolades you give me, that was probably one of the best questions from your stream of consciousness I've ever heard. So let me answer that this way. You quit thinking about insurance. You're giving me, or you're talking about me taking an aspirin to lower my fever. How about if I just mask up? How about if I, wash my hands a bunch of times? Or if I don't want to mask up, how about if I stay 23 feet away from people? I have that exact situation right now. My director, or I've kind of almost sort of retired, but I do a lot of still major case management. And I've got a young director of safety, thank God, is an ex-Marine. And every time he starts telling me all these metrics and all this technology, I look at him and say, okay, Sergeant, what's that mean to anybody? Yeah, I see what you mean. The metrics have a place. The statistics have a place. The new technology. We have a great technology that's the adaptive cruise control that will slow down if something's in front of you. So what happens when the person switches to a unit that doesn't have adaptive cruise control? They go in the back and make a sandwich and rear end 17 cars. And what we have to do, and I'm doing it with my friends all the time. The guys in my age group are getting ready to, drift off and, drink pina coladas. There's a lot of people that fish. People that fish, I admire that because they have the ability to keep their mind straight because they've got a little minnow or a spinner or something in the water. These guys who are going to do that, I tell them, and I do preach, you got to have a bucket list. And on your bucket list, you have to understand when you're going to quit doing this, and you have to have that next generation ready to do it. If not, you've wasted a damn lifetime. The guy that replaced, well, that's a bad way to put it because I can never be replaced. But the guy who took my job at Western is amazing. But we spent a year and a half together. Is he more amazing now? I like to think so. But he was pretty darn amazing when we started. So, the long answer to your question is you got to figure out who those people are. Just like the guy in the Army who got in a foreign country and didn't mean to. You have to pick the right people, and you have to make sure they are prepared to do that. And there's a lot more of that going on than you realize. Because the guys I really care about, I want them to take some time off, and I know they won't if they're not prepared. So I start asking them questions. It's not a podcast, but I start asking them questions. Yeah. How are you doing this? What are you doing? I will literally have a younger attorney in a case because I want them to get the experience. And attorneys for me are not always about adversarial relationships. They're about helping get the parties to conclusion. Because if you're really hurt, the worst thing in your world is for that to drag on, either mentally or physically. So you get to closure, and again, it's not really that idealistic. But if the person can't work for you anymore because of their physical limitations, get them to a place where they can do whatever they want to do with their lives. It's only the right thing to do. And I'll tell you, we had a division that was probably one of the more prone to injuries than you've ever seen. We enjoyed great success in people either not getting hurt or getting returned to work or getting their claims concluded by that empathetic method of resolution. And if I had a adjuster who was not understanding of these people are important to me, who do you think survived? The adjuster or my person? Well, easy answer.
I want to switch gears a little bit and maybe get a little philosophical. I've found, and this is just my experience, the folks who can bridge the technical with the people side and have empathy and are conducting themselves with a mission to serve seem to have a good sense of humor. I don't know if it's a feature that goes along with it or a personality trait, but I found it in my life incredibly effective. And I want to get your take, and I'll tell you my feeling on it. For some reason, I see it as a way to connect with people. And I don't mean making fun of something trivial that's going on in a case that's really personal and that would be offensive. I mean, maybe looking at the situation and seeing a little bit of ridiculousness in it, and making someone laugh. And I'll give an example that you told me. You were with your team in the military, and you used humor, I think, for several reasons. One, psychologically, to kind of break things up, because maybe there was a little stress and monotony going on, and it kind of broke them up. But I think collective laughter, it adds cohesion with the team and brings people together. And I'm sure it amused you too. I mean, you're doing it for yourself, but in general, I guess I'd love to hear, because I in talking with you previously, you have an incredibly quick wit and are insanely funny. How do you view humor in your life in general and in your professional life?
That's funny, because literally, as you think about it, you kind of lost me when you used the word connect in the beginning of your soliloquy, because that's what it is. You can't take people, and trust me, I work with a lot of them who think they're funny and they're not. But, we have to just look over them. We say, bless their hearts in the South, and we all know what that means.
Shannon Thompson tells that to me all the time.
Hey, that's my niece, so be careful. I think what you have to do is you have to connect with people. If you're a funny person, well, let me just say it this way. I believe that the connection has to be real or it's contrived, it appears contrived. I just love the heck out of people. First time I met you, it was a hoot. It was an intrusion into my schedule, and I ended up hanging up going, damn, I wish we could have spent more time together. I really enjoyed it.
Same, man.
But you have to have that feeling. In mediations, I always apologize, or I tell people if I'm a participant in the mediation, I apologize if I'm not the mediator. But if I'm a participant, I'll apologize. The one time I did it was in an auto liability case, and I didn't feel it. And the apology came out something like, I'm sorry, we didn't hurt you enough for you to get the money that you think you deserve. And you can tell how that went. So I think it's not about humor, it's about being authentic. And you know what? I find joy in everything. You know, and I was talking to somebody this morning, and I told them I was vocalizing, getting ready for this, and I was like, it was on text, so I did do, re, me, me, and my next comment was, I can never get by me. And we have to laugh at ourselves. We have to find humor. There's enough crap in this world that if we wanted to be disappointed every day, we could be.
Yeah.
We have people who are injured, and they're still people. They still need to lighten their load as much as they can. They still need to have some fun in their day, but I'm just genuine. And in a mediation, I'll tell people, I'll just tell them, this could be my last day, and I'm going to enjoy it. If I leave here and get hit by a meteor, I'm not going to have a frown on my face. So while your situation is important to me, just let's be glad we're here. Let's be glad we can talk, and let's move on, and closure, I think, is a big deal for people. And I will not, I'm not saying this for a self-centered reason, but I get hugged many more times than I get cursed leaving a mediation. And it's not because I'm easy. It's not because I give money away. It's because you portray that humanness that you feel. And, that's why I urge all my peers, hey, if you got people out there that shouldn't be talking to people, don't let them talk to people. Think about, in the Army, we had teams, and there were people that were good at certain things. You have snipers because they're really good shots. Well, everybody's not a really good shot. I was, just in case you're wondering. But, you have to go back and find those people that can fulfill those roles. And I think people get amazed at me when I tell them, I would never let that person testify. There has to be somebody in your company who understands your business and can articulate it better than that cardboard stick figure. And then I will get them, with a cold iced tea, of course, not anything alcoholic. And I would tell them, hey, they were snotty to me. How do you think they're going to be to somebody that doesn't have the ability to look them in the eye and say, what'd you say?
Right.
So I don't know. I'm old. I'm 107. I get to be idealistic, and the idealism in what I do is let's just make this better every day.
So on those lines, you are involved in some charitable endeavors. And if you go to your website, there's quite a few you're involved in. What is that? What the driving force is? I mean, is it that simple that there's a call to serve, and you want to make the world a better place? This is the outlet for it.
That and part of it is I was lucky. If you do go to the website, I talk a little bit about my mom and dad. And my dad was the kindest person in the world. My mom was kind, but she was also driven to make sure I got an education. And at the end of the day, honestly, I feel like I've been gifted with so much stuff, and stuff not being all material. I mean, I've got amazing friends. Hell, you interrupted my schedule and I liked you. I looked forward to spending time with you today. I have been blessed far more than I deserve. And it kind of drives my opinion. If I've got the ability to either in a mediation or in a interaction with the claimant, I have been removed from truck drivers for 2 years, really 2 years because of my role, and I'm still getting phone calls. And the question is, and I'll ask you a question because you got to ask all the questions. How do you handle that call 2 years later? How do you handle that call?
A truck driver who was hurt.
Who needs your help?
You pick up the call.
Yeah.
You pick up the phone.
You pick up, do you? Even you got it, you know it's a number that you don't recognize. Do you pick up the call?
Oh, if it's this day and
Do you
age,
think it's that auto liability guy, that auto warranty guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I even answer them because I don't want them to get pissed off at me. But what I'll tell you is I know what you would do. I've spent very little time with you, but I overvalue my ability to read people. You would take that call and you try to get them to somebody who could help them.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
Always.
You just the meager amount of time that I've had with you, I read you as a person who really cares about people who are injured, about making sure they have closure. And I wish everybody was like that, but you and I got to try harder because everybody's not like that. And your organization is built for that. Your organization is built to help people. And the only reason I agreed to do this was because your company and I and my company share similar philosophies. And to me, we're Amway in this, brother. We're trying to build up diamond distributors that do the same stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a little idealistic, but if I don't believe it, what do I do? Is life just horrible and I just don't have anything to feel strongly about? I started my own company, which, the McCullough Unlimited, I started because I want a bigger platform. I want to be working and I'm pursuing them now, but there's a Veterans Adventure Group in Nashville. And I desperately want to work with them. And the reasons are, I know part of their leadership, and two, it's about veterans. And I am drawn to homelessness. I'm drawn to veterans. Shout out for Operation Stand Down in Nashville, Tennessee, which is an organization that I got to be involved with several years ago. And they took my piddly little organization from 1999, and I went and visited them the other day because they're one of my partners. And I walked around like a daddy walking through the trophy room. I mean, these people are doing good work. So, we got to work, we got to do stuff, but I don't know why we can't be better to each other as we do it. Whether it's dealing with somebody with an injury, whether it's, what? If you're listening to this, next time you get gas and there's somebody across from you, just speak to them. Say, hey man, how's your day going? Boy, isn't it beautiful weather? And if you can make somebody have a little better day by a 30-second interaction, what the heck did that cost you? So, and I am on no kind of stimulants. I have not even had caffeine today. It's just the way I feel. Or to quote a standard, that's all I have to say about that.
Well, on that note, love you, man. This has been great. I truly appreciate getting the time to talk to you. And I hope on a personal level, I get to talk to you more too. We
always say that the day you call me when you're bored and you just want to chat for a minute, or I call you, that's when that becomes real.
All right. Well,
you got an open invitation. I appreciate what your company's doing. I appreciate what you're doing. And just thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. It's settled. That's Clarence Easterday. Thank you, sir. Thanks for joining us for this episode of It's Settled, the Amitros podcast. For more information and episodes, you can visit us at our website at amitros.com. That's ametros.com. Or head over to iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. We hope you enjoyed this episode and look forward to sharing more stories of people overcoming their workplace accidents and bodily injury claims and those who are working hard to make a difference for them. So it's settled. We'll see you next time.